Next customer. Please come this way, I called out as the cash registers grew increasingly crowded. Swiftly, I opened the adjacent register and began guiding customers through their transactions. After a concerted effort, the congestion eased, allowing me to return to restocking shelves. "Mary, you're amazing at ringing up customers so quickly," remarked a fellow part-time employee, breaking the rhythm of my tasks. In this bustling supermarket, a diverse mix of high school students and individuals like myself populated the workforce, making each shift enjoyable. My name is Mary, a 45-year-old part-time housewife who found solace and purpose in this role for the past decade. When my child began elementary school, I sought employment and landed a part-time position at this local market. The environment, filled with fellow housewives and understanding managers, suited my lifestyle perfectly. Over the years, I transitioned into one of the senior part-timers, familiar with both customers and colleagues alike. However, a sudden change disrupted our routine when our beloved manager was transferred to headquarters for what seemed like a promotion. His replacement, a newcomer from the headquarters, lacked the familiarity and competence we had grown accustomed to. Slowly, the atmosphere soared as his managerial style clashed with the store's dynamics. Rumors circulated among part-timers speculating on the president's wife's preferences for young, charismatic managers. It became apparent that our new manager saw her favor, often seen engaging in conversation with her. Despite the dissatisfaction brewing among us, none dared to voice their concerns to the president's wife. Instead, some part-time housewives and student employees quietly began resigning. As the situation unfolded, I found myself contemplating whether it was time to seek alternative part-time employment, unsure of what the future held in this changing environment. I found myself in the crosshairs of the president's wife, her sudden inquiry catching me off guard. "You've been working at the store for quite some time, haven't you? How's your child? Already in college? Which one?" she prodded, surprising me with her directness. "Yes, I've been here since the previous manager," I replied cautiously, not eager to delve into personal matters. Then, with a cutting tone, she remarked, "You seem rather incompetent. I doubt you even attended a decent college, did you?" Her words struck deep, but before I could respond, the register area became inundated with customers. I offered a quick nod to the president's wife and swiftly attended to my duties. In truth, my educational journey had ended with middle school. High school had been a tumultuous time, marked by bullying and eventual dropout during my third year. Since then, I had carved out a life as a part-time worker, eventually meeting my husband in a similar setting and building a life far removed from academic pedigrees. The president's wife, however, seemed to embody a stark contrast. She often boasted about her prestigious university background, yet curiously avoided divulging its name. It struck me as odd, but I brushed it off, lacking any particular interest. Perhaps she harbored preconceived notions about part-time workers like myself, assuming we lacked higher education. I recalled overhearing her discussing such matters with the store manager, leaving me to wonder if she looked down upon us. As murmurs circulated among fellow part-timers about similar interrogations, I found myself bracing for another encounter with the president's wife when, sure enough, she returned to the store the following day. "Excuse me," her voice cut through the air, signaling another potentially tense exchange. My attention snapped up when the president's wife directed her gaze towards me, a smirk playing on her lips as if she found amusement in some private joke. Despite the urge to react, I managed to rein in my irritation, keeping my emotions in check as she began to speak. "So, you're just a middle school graduate, aren't you? I never pegged you for a college goer, but to think you're managing here with that level of education is quite something," she remarked, her words dripping with thinly veiled condescension. I couldn't help but wonder where she had gleaned this information from, until I recalled the previous day's incident when the store manager had been scrutinizing the part-timers' resumes in the office. It seemed that what should have been confidential information had somehow found its way into the president's wife's hands. Annoyance bubbled within me at the thought of her freely sharing such personal details with other employees. I had never sought to fabricate my educational background, but the audacity of someone spreading rumors about my academic history grated on my nerves. While my fellow part-time colleagues seemed unfazed by the revelation, the president's wife took every opportunity to remind me of my supposed educational shortcomings. It became her refrain, peppering our interactions with thinly veiled jabs. "Maybe you wouldn't understand. Being just a middle school graduate, she would quip, using my education as a pretext to assign me menial tasks like cleaning. The repetition of her taunts grated on my nerves, feeling a growing resentment towards my workplace. I began to question why I subjected myself to such treatment, feeling increasingly disheartened by her relentless needling. A few days later, when she returned to the store, her mere presence was enough to stir up irritation within me. As I attempted to sidestep her, she caught my eye and gestured towards the cardboard box storage area, an area typically left untouched as it was designated for supplier use. "People like you should be familiar with garbage," she sneered, her words laced with disdain. "Middle school graduates like yourself are just here to collect a paycheck." Her words stung, delivered in the privacy of the back room, shielded from the scrutiny of customers. It was a deliberate attempt to belittle me, a reminder of my perceived inadequacies in her eyes. I had always managed to endure, especially since most interactions occurred in the bustling sales area. But on that particular day, the weight of my pent-up frustration became too much to bear. "Excuse me, but I believe I earned my paycheck for diligent work, regardless of my educational background," I interjected, my tone laced with simmering anger. The president's wife appeared taken aback, clearly unaccustomed to such pushback. "If you're going to be here, why not contribute something beneficial to the store?" "We're never quite sure what you're up to," she retorted, her words dripping with disdain. Ignoring the curious glances of passing colleagues, I pressed on. "And what exactly are you contributing by gracing us with your presence? Chatting with the manager, flirting with male employees and high school part-timers, looking down on the rest of us?" I challenged, refusing to back down. Her face flushed crimson with rage as my words hit their mark. "Unlike someone like you, I have a busy schedule. Coming here takes time out of my day," she shot back, attempting to assert her superiority. I couldn't help but scoff at her assertion. "Do you truly believe that?" "Neither the employees nor the customers share your sentiment. It's intriguing how some with impressive educational backgrounds prove utterly ineffectual in practice," I countered, releasing the resentment I had long harbored towards her condescending attitude. Clearly flustered by my unexpected retort, the president's wife struggled to conjure a suitable response, resorting to tired clichés. "Do you honestly think you can continue working here after speaking to me like that?" she challenged, her voice tinged with disbelief. Without hesitation, I delivered my final verdict. "Then I'll resign," I declared, refusing to tolerate any further belittlement. In response, the president's wife let out a mocking laugh. "Well, that'll save us on labor costs," she sneered, her words dripping with derision. I returned the smile, nodding in agreement. "Yes, that's right. Good for you," I affirmed before making my way towards the locker room. Inside, I found a fellow part-timer who had witnessed the earlier exchange. I poured out the details of what had transpired, recounting the frustrations that had been building up. "Mary, are you really quitting?" she asked, her expression reflecting the sadness of our shared experiences over the years. "It just hasn't been the same since the manager changed. It feels like we're only here out of obligation," I confided, echoing her sentiments. "With so many people leaving, you'd think they'd hire more staff, but they'd rather cut costs." She nodded in understanding. "It's becoming unbearable. I don't blame you for wanting out." Leaving the locker room behind, I headed towards where the manager and the president's wife were engaged in conversation. Without preamble, I made my intentions clear. "That's it, I'm done," I stated firmly, meeting their surprised gazes head-on. The president's wife chuckled, seemingly amused by the news. "So, the junior high school graduate is calling it quits. I wonder where someone like you will find work," she remarked, her tone dripping with condescension. I refuse to let her words rattle me. "Even if I have nowhere else lined up, I won't be coming back here. I'll return my uniform next week. Thank you for everything," I declared, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. As I exited the supermarket, a sense of relief washed over me. The following week, when I returned to return my uniform, I found the store abuzz with commotion. The manager was being berated by irate customers near the cash register, suggesting some sort of transaction error. Despite the chaos, I felt a sense of peace knowing that I had made the right decision to leave. With my resignation already settled, I made my way towards the office to return my uniform. As I approached the door, the unmistakable voice of the president's wife reached my ears, giving me pause. Reluctantly, I pushed the door open, finding the former manager inside. Despite his new role at headquarters, my ingrained habit led me to address him as manager out of reflex. It seemed the president's wife had been engaged in conversation with him, but she hastily departed upon my arrival. "What happened at the register?" the former manager queried, his expression troubled. He proceeded to inform me of a spate of recent complaints at the store since my departure. With a cascade of resignations following mine, the store had been left scrambling to cope with the sudden exodus of part-timers and student workers. Though the manager attempted to fill in on the sales floor, his lack of familiarity with basic tasks like stocking shelves and operating the register led to a litany of customer complaints. Today's incident, however, involved a particularly embarrassing misstep. The president's wife, while conversing with a male employee, was mistaken for staff by a customer. Brushing off the inquiry, she exacerbated the situation when the manager inadvertently disclosed her true identity, sparking further discontent among patrons. As the register area swelled with customers, the absence of experienced part-timers compounded the chaos. Both unfamiliar employees and the manager found themselves manning the registers, resulting in numerous errors and lengthy delays. The escalating frustration among customers culminated in the manager facing a barrage of complaints, exacerbating an already tumultuous situation. Turning to me, the former store manager sought insight into the unfolding debacle, hoping for some semblance of understanding in the aftermath of my departure. When asked why I had decided to quit, I didn't hesitate to respond honestly. The former manager seemed genuinely interested in my reasons for leaving, and I felt it was only fair to provide him with the truth. In turn, he confided in me that he had heard rumors regarding the president's wife's educational background. While he lacked specific details, the word on the grapevine was that she had only graduated from high school. This revelation left me pondering the irony of her previous educational condescension. Could it be that the president's wife, with her supposed lack of higher education, was projecting her own insecurities onto others? It certainly made her seem all the more formidable and unpredictable. 2 weeks later, the supermarket I had once called my workplace stood deserted. The usual throng of customers was conspicuously absent, a stark contrast to the bustling scenes of my former shifts. It's no surprise, given all those complaints, I mused to myself as I observed the desolate scene. Lost in thought, I was approached from behind by the former store manager. After exchanging pleasantries, he mentioned a new store opening just one station away. He extended an offer, asking if I would be interested in joining the team. It appeared that an employee he had trained was being promoted to the position of store manager at the new location. Knowing the caliber of this individual, I felt a sense of trust and reassurance. I nodded in agreement and wasted no time in reaching out to my former part-time comrades. Upon confirmation of my role at the new store, I discovered that some of my former colleagues would also be joining me, a comforting realization amidst the uncertainty of change. Under the guidance of an understanding manager, I quickly settled into my new role. The atmosphere was welcoming, and I found it easy to establish rapport with my coworkers, both old and new. The new store introduced innovative offerings, such as local side dishes and bread, which proved to be a hit with customers. As I embraced this fresh start, I couldn't help but feel optimistic about the opportunities that lay ahead. As I settled into my new role at the store, I was greeted by familiar faces from my time at the previous location. The transition to the new store went smoothly, marked by a successful launch and positive feedback from both customers and employees. However, I soon heard troubling reports about the old store. It had become notably quiet, and the manager found themselves facing frequent scoldings during head office meetings. A string of new hires as part-timers quickly came and went, exacerbating the ongoing staff shortage. Finding a new part-time job had brought a sense of relief, and I was content to work happily as I had before. But about a month into my tenure at the new store, the president's wife made a surprising appearance before me. Her unexpected visit seemed to be aimed directly at me, as she wasted no time in addressing the rumors she had heard. "I heard there's a junior high school dropout working at our store again, so I came to check," she stated bluntly. I couldn't help but sigh at her accusatory tone. "What's the issue?" "I haven't done anything wrong," I replied, feeling unfairly targeted. She persisted, laying blame at my feet for the troubles at the old store. But I refused to accept her accusations. "Isn't it more accurate to say that you're the one engaging in power harassment?" I challenged, frustration simmering beneath the surface. Former colleagues from the previous store attempted to intervene. But I waved them off. I couldn't let them shoulder the blame for something they weren't responsible for. As a middle school graduate, I can't possibly be held accountable for all the employees quitting, I asserted, refusing to be intimidated. The president's wife's anger flared at my defiance, but I stood my ground, supported by nods of agreement from fellow part-timers. If you're having trouble understanding, let me spell it out for you. Your disdain for our educational backgrounds and the manager's incompetence have created a toxic environment, I explained, my words ringing with conviction. In the end, no one wants to endure power harassment while working part-time, and it was time for the president's wife to acknowledge the real issues at hand. When I accused the president's wife of power harassment, she immediately raised her voice in denial. "Are you trying to frame me without any evidence?" she retorted, her tone sharp with indignation. Just as she attempted to grab hold of me, the manager intervened, asserting firmly, "Can you please stop doing that to our part-timers?" Despite the risk to his own position, the manager stood his ground. "I am the manager of this store, and it's my duty to protect the employees. I will fulfill my role, whether you're the president's wife or not," he declared, earning applause from the other part-timers. With a resigned sigh, I reached for my smartphone. "I have evidence of power harassment," I stated calmly before playing a video. The footage showed the president's wife berating another part-timer at the previous store, clearly demonstrating a pattern of abusive behavior. As more part-timers stepped forward with their own recordings, it became evident that we had all experienced her mistreatment. "We're going to sue her," I announced, met with resolute nods of agreement from my colleagues and the manager. Furious at the manager's defiance, the president's wife impulsively fired him on the spot. But to her dismay, I revealed that I had recorded her dismissal as well, ensuring the manager's protection. Realizing the depth of her self-inflicted predicament, the president's wife attempted to flee. But before she could escape, I confronted her one final time. "There are more important things than education, aren't there? Sometimes humanity matters more than society," I remarked pointedly, causing her to pause. "How did you know?" she muttered, inadvertently admitting to her own insecurities. With her self-destruction complete, the president's wife retreated at a speed I had never seen before. In the aftermath, we pursued legal action against her, armed with solid evidence and the support of fellow part-timers. As news of her misconduct spread, similar complaints emerged from other stores, leading to a reckoning for her behavior. Forced to confront the consequences, the president demanded she repay her debts by working. It was a satisfying sight to witness her laboring angrily at a nearby drugstore, a fitting end to her reign of mistreatment. With a trustworthy manager at our helm, we continued our work with renewed dedication, free from the